And we're off. Hi, everyone. Welcome to episode 434 of the All Dolphins podcast on this Saturday, December 21st. Guess it's the start of winter. It's time for Behind Enemy Lines, and I am very happy to be joined by my good buddy Grant Cohn, who is the publisher of the San Francisco 49ers on SI site. Sister site is Miami Dolphins on SI. Also the host of the Cone Zone podcast. Of course, I come up with All Dolphins podcast, not nearly as clever as my friend Grant here. I could have gone with the poop scoop, I guess. But when I started, I had a co-host, and I don't want to make it all about myself. So we went with the All Dolphins podcast. Grant, how are you? Very long intro, but Grant, how are you?
Good. There's still time to turn it into the poop scoop. I think that has legs. I'm enjoying myself. This is supposed to be winter. I like this. I could get used to this.
Oh, it's cold today, actually.
This feels like a summer morning in San Francisco. It's real cold.
Oh, nice. I love it. Love it. And I just got back from Canada, the outskirts of Quebec City, and here's the thing I tell people all the time, for those who don't know, it was like 30 degrees. I'm walking outside, and it's so comfortable. I have a jacket on. I think I could have gone without the jacket because the air is dry. You come to Miami, it gets to 55, 60, and I'm freezing my ass off.
Interesting, because of the humidity.
Humidity.
Okay.
So here we're going to talk about, obviously, the matchup on Sunday between the San Francisco 49ers and the Miami Dolphins at Hard Rock Stadium. And Grant, let me ask you this. What percentage of the 49ers fans are like the Dolphins right now? Because both teams are 6-8. Both teams are very long shots to make the playoffs. Who are probably going to be looking at this saying, who cares about the matchup? They're both done. What's the percentage of 49ers fans?
I mean, very high. And I think maybe beyond who cares is I really hope the Niners lose this game because let's get a better draft pick. I think that's where Niner fans. So if they get blown out, Niner fans will be upset. But if they win, Niner fans will be upset. I think they're looking for like a competitive, close loss. I don't know if Dolphins fans are in the same boat.
Oh, a lot of them are actually. And it boggles my mind. And I get it that if the Dolphins find a way to make the playoffs, and I'll give you a quick, and then you can tell me what needs to happen for the 49ers, but the Dolphins need 2 of the 4 things to happen, which is, 3 of the 5 things to happen. They need to win out. San Francisco at home, at Cleveland, at Jets. They need then 2 of the following 4. Colts to lose at least 1 game. Denver to lose out, and they're at Cincinnati, KC at home. Chargers to lose out at New England, at Las Vegas, or Baltimore to lose out, and they've got Pittsburgh at home, at Houston, and Cleveland at home. But yeah, even if they make the playoffs, they probably get blown out by whoever they play. But wouldn't you at least like to have that shot? I mean, am I crazy?
That sounds like a better shot than the Niners have. The Niners need, I believe, Seattle and the Rams to lose all of their games. And then when Seattle and LA play each other, they have to tie.
Oh, boy. Yeah.
So good luck. I mean, they have a less than a 1% chance. I think they have a 0.2% chance of making the playoffs. So just lose to the Dolphins. It's very important that they lose this game to the Dolphins. But the problem is the Niners are so bad at drafting in round 1, it might not matter how high they pick.
Can you give me recent example of whiffs?
I mean, Ricky Pearsall. Maybe it's a little too early to say he's a whiff, but he has like no catches. A little early. But Trey Lance is a big one. Javon Kinlaw was a big one. Solomon Thomas, Reuben Foster. Mike McGlinchey was okay, but he's not even on the team anymore. They got Nick Bosa and Brandon Ayuk in 8 years. Those are their 2 hits in round 1.
And yet they've killed it in a couple of later rounds because
round 5.
Is that
they get like Hall of Famers in round 5 consistently. It's the strangest thing.
It's weird because the Dolphins also have done great in round 5. They drafted Zach Thomas in round 5. They drafted Rashad Jones, who was a Pro Bowl player. They drafted Brian Cox, who was a Pro Bowl player. And I'm sure I'm forgetting some, but it's weird.
I have a theory. I think that Kyle Shanahan and maybe Mike McDaniel meddle early in the draft. And then finally they get to round 5 and they're like, okay, I haven't heard any of these guys. And the front office can do their job. And they're like, boom, here's where we make our statement. Maybe I'm wrong. But the Niners are way too bad. They're way too good in round 5 to be that bad in round 1. So there's got to be different people making picks.
It's weird, right?
Yeah.
So I wrote about this on the site yesterday, Miami Dolphins on site.com, where you can read our content for free. Mine and Grant's as well on the 49ers on site.com. And I kind of like basically presented this as a matchup of disappointing teams for 2024. And then if we're going to basically rank them, pretty hard to beat the 49ers in terms of disappointment level. But here's the thing. They have been killed by injuries, more so than the Dolphins, who have had their share, but they've Lions probably lead the way, and yet they're still really good. But the 49ers have been killed. So how much of the disappointment is that? And then the other factor that I saw is they're 2-5 in games decided by one scorer.
Yeah, I think they want to use the injury excuse, and there have been a lot of injuries, but they were bad early in the year when Brandon Ayuk was there. Like they haven't. I mean, Christian McCaffrey hasn't been there all year, and I think in retrospect, he was carrying the team. He was the best player on the team. He scored like a touchdown a game for a year and a half. So his loss was catastrophic. But still, I think what really set the tone this year was maybe you weren't plugged into Niner drama, but really of all the teams in the league this offseason, I think the Niners had more drama than anyone else. It was Brandon Ayuk saga for 4 or 5 months. And I think that kind of set the tone of this isn't really a team. It's a collection of individuals that are out for themselves. I mean, no offense to Brandon Ayuk, but like his whole mission all offseason was he needed to be one of the highest paid wide receivers in the league. And once that's the tone, it seems like his individual competitiveness, which is great, made him who he was, superseded team goals. And once you get to there, I think it trickles down to the rest of the team, which is what we've seen. And you have a team that's the most disappointing team in the league. Although Dolphins are right there. These teams are mirror images of each other.
Yep, all the time. And the Dolphins also had their contract issues in the offseason. And basically what they wound up, because they had to deal with Tua's contract. They had to deal with Jalen Waddle was going to be up. And then so they gave extensions to those two guys. And we can debate whether that was the right move.
Do themselves a parade. We got everything going. Everything's great. 6-8.
Well, and then they gave extensions to Mike McDaniel with 2 years left on his contract, to Jalen Ramsey with 2 years left on his contract, and then they gave an extension. They restructured Tyreek Hill to move money up front and guarantee everything.
These are the same teams. The Niners did they restructured Debo. They give Kyle an extension every 2 years. It's incredible.
Well, here's the big difference, though. Last I checked, the 49ers actually have won a playoff game, even
that
more
is
than
true.
one.
That is true. That's true. That's because the Niners had one hell of a defense for a while. They really did. Not anymore.
Okay, tell me then, why is that? Is this? I know not injuries, is it? I mean, but
well, I mean, they had a hell of a defense when Dre Greenlaw was in his prime, and I think we saw it in this last game against the Rams. Dre Greenlaw was the best player on the defense. His first game back from tearing his Achilles in the Super Bowl, hasn't even been a year. He had I want to say 8 tackles in the first half, and he played so hard that he couldn't even play in the second half. I mean, he made a big difference. As good as Fred Warner is, people talk about him like he's a future Hall of Famer. He does all of his best work backing up. He's the best coverage linebacker I think I've ever seen. But in terms of linebacker's still a violent downhill position, and that's not Fred Warner. He's more like a big DB. Dre Greenlaw is the tone setter in this defense. So they don't quite have when the Niners played the Dolphins in Santa Clara 2 years ago, I thought Tua was actually intimidated by that defense. He was terrible in that game. I don't think he's going to be actually intimidated by the Niners defense in this game unless Greenlaw and Bosa play, which is why would they? You need to lose, and they're kind of hurt. So, but I don't know. The Niners been doing this all year. Trent Williams had a little ankle sprain, and he's 36, and the Niners were like, you know what? We're going to shoot it up with the pain-killing injection. You get out there and play. Hasn't played since. Went out there, tried to play through the injury. Hasn't played since. The Niners have been very aggressive with players who are injured this year. Let's see if they continue that in a game that literally doesn't matter.
That's weird. Yeah, but the 49ers themselves have not given up on the season, have they?
Well, no. I mean, we'll see what they do. Last week was the do-or-die game.
Yeah.
The defense came to play. The offense didn't. They lost 12-6 at home.
Correct.
So we'll see what they do now against Miami. It seems like people, again, everyone has their own little agenda on this team. They never came together as a team. Brock Purdy is up for an extension in technically 2 weeks. As soon as the regular season's over, he could get his extension. So he needs to play well. He just put up a game with a quarterback rating of 45 at home. And to me, that's the last thing that matters. That was the final exam. The season's over. If you could put up a 158.3 against the Dolphins. It doesn't matter. There's no pressure in this game. But if he puts up another stinker, I think the Niners might hold it against them.
Yeah, and it's interesting. You mentioned Brock Purdy. You and I kind of talked, as they say in the business, off air about this. Is the 49ers are kind of dealing with the same situation, decision, dilemma with their quarterback the Dolphins were in last offseason. The Dolphins went ahead and I'm going to go on record for those not familiar with my position. If you're a follower of this podcast, you know what my position was. I would have made Tua play on the fifth-year option. But they didn't go that route. They gave him a big contract that ties, and I looked at it again yesterday. It really ties their hands with Tua, committed to Tua, at least for next season. There's an out if they want to go that route in 2026. And
nothing gets season ticket holders more excited than another year of Tua, right?
Well, Tua's a great polarizing figure. There, he's got a camp of followers.
That's true. He's been famous down here since college, so it's a different. Yeah. Good point.
And granted, in South Florida when he says down.
True.
There's a segment of fans where he can do no wrong. It's never his fault. And when they win, it's look at Tua light it up. And then
Purdy has the same segment of fans, by the way.
Okay,
Yes, absolutely. I think every starting quarterback has a segment of diehards.
And then it's like, and then there are certain fans who are like, he sucks. Everything he does, it's never good enough. So obviously the truth lies somewhere in the middle.
Of course.
If I'm as a Dolphin reporter, if I were to advise the 49ers, I would say think long and hard and very carefully about this decision.
Oh, don't worry. They're all in. They're going to give him all the. I don't know. There's a report that he wants $60 million a year. And maybe the Niners were like, we love you, but not at that number. I mean, Patrick Mahomes gets $45 million. I can't understand. Because I can see how Purdy's like, well, Dak gets it. Okay, like we don't want to be the no one wants to be the Cowboys. Literally no, and the Cowboys don't like that. They probably instantly regretted that contract. I don't know how the Dolphins feel about the Tua contract, but they probably aren't feeling great about it. And like you said, if they had just made him play out the fifth-year option, they'd be feeling way better about themselves. The Niners could do that with Brock. He doesn't have a fifth-year option, but he's got the fourth year on his rookie deal coming up next year. He's having the worst year of his career. What is the rush? What if you think you saw one good year from him? But anyway, we're here to talk about the dog. I just don't understand. But it's like the same attitude from both organizations. They want to feel like they have everything under control. Let's give out extensions left and right. Okay, but now you're 6-8. How did that work out? What's the next move to improve? Well, we're locked into this team. Yeah, but this team isn't good. No, we just have injuries. No, you're soft. You're soft. Both teams.
Soft?
Oh, really? Absolutely, they're soft. Yes, they are. They are. At least, hey, when Greenlaw's not out there, they are. When Greenlaw's back, they're not a soft team, but we'll see what he's got.
Okay.
How long he stay.
And again, the big difference between the two teams is the 49ers went to the NFC Championship game in 2022. They went to the Super Bowl last season. So it's not like they can't come back and say, this is why we're keeping our nucleus, because this is a really talented team.
Yeah, but to me, it's like, how talented is the nucleus once you take Christian McCaffrey out of it? But there was a reason they traded for Christian McCaffrey. They were having a really bad season in 2022. They get him, and I think they won like 10, 11, 12 games in a row. He really carried this team in retrospect. And he came back this year. He wasn't the same player at all. He couldn't carry him anymore. And they've been floundering ever since. Again, like they move the ball. I don't know if the Dolphins are the same way. They move the ball really well, yards per play really high. But when it's time to score touchdowns, they can't do it anymore. It's the hardest thing in the world for them all of a sudden, scoring touchdowns. This is a group that's been together for 8 years. It's the strangest thing.
Do they move the ball from goal to goal like no one's ever seen?
Kind of.
Okay. For those not familiar, that's part of the Dolphins fight song. Miami has a Dolphins, the greatest. But anyway.
The Niners don't have a fight song. They need one.
They don't need one. Okay, they do need one.
The Chargers have the best fight song.
Do they? I don't even
San Diego Supercharged. It's not a fight song. It's just corny.
They don't, yeah,
you know that song?
Doesn't work anymore. They don't play.
I know. It's a West Coast classic. It's too bad.
I hate teams moving, by the way, which is part of why I wear the hat. This is my
San Diego was like a real football town, in my opinion. And they moved. No, I went to school in LA. No one cares about professional football in that town. It's just down on the list. College football is more important than professional football in that town.
No, I agree. And then San Diego, we talked about the weather at the onset here. There is no better weather than San Diego.
Wonderful place. Yeah, it is.
It's 3 years after the fact, and when we last had you on, we did discuss Mike McDaniel. What's your take on his coaching job and what he's done as somebody who used to cover him as an assistant with the 49ers?
Okay. He seems like like a mirror image of Kyle Shanahan. He's quirkier than Kyle. I think he's better at relating to human beings than Kyle. He's got more of a relatable side, and he's funny. But I think he wants to be friends with the players, the good players, a little too much. I wonder how much the leaders on the team really respect him. I think with Kyle and McDaniel, when their offenses are cooking, everyone respects them. You're getting people open, you're getting people paid. We love you. You're one of the guys. But when your offense isn't working and you're struggling to score touchdowns, I wonder if people in the locker room look at him kind of side-eyed and be like, "You're not our friend, and you're not helping us right now. What do you really bring to the table? It's not leadership." So that's what I'm looking at with the Dolphins. It seems like Kyle and his disciples are all really struggling this year, not just in terms of leadership, but in terms of like offense, scoring. And I wonder, these defensive coordinators in the NFL are so good, and they've been exposed to this scheme for a few years. It's really become the dominant scheme in the league, and it seems like probably not a coincidence that Shanahan and McDaniel and Bobby Slowick in Houston all kind of struggling this season. Have you noticed that?
No, I have. And I did a mailbag this weekend, and I was asked whether there was something to the idea, as was written a few weeks back, of those coaches who work with McDaniel having an advantage because they were been exposed to his scheme. And to me, it's like, first of all, no, there's enough tape out there that you don't need to have worked with Mike McDaniel to understand what he's trying to do. The problem is that most of the guys that he used to coach with are now coaching good teams. And this is where the Dolphins come up short. They handle and they move the ball and they score, produce big numbers against bad teams, which they did against New England, against Las Vegas and all that. Even against the Jets, they had good numbers. Well, they play good teams. Against Green Bay, it was 27-3 midway through the third quarter. And against Houston last week, even though, yes, they were missing their two starting tackles, they scored 12 points. So
it seems like they're a little gimmicky. Like everyone knows they're going to do a shift in motion to try to get someone out of a gap. They're going to try to do play action and throw the ball over the middle. I think there's so many tendencies out on McDaniel and Kyle as play callers that they need to evolve and adjust, and they're struggling with that.
Yep. No, and we keep. Here's the thing. Also, is we keep hearing that the Dolphins justifying their lack of deep passing this year as well. The defenses are taking it away. Well, they weren't trying to do that before. I mean,
and what are you paying Tyreek Hill to do if that's you just run shallow crosses?
Yeah, correct.
Does he want off the team? He had that really cryptic tweet, but he didn't use a comma, and I didn't know. Did he want to go coach? Does he want to go comma coach? What is he trying to express?
Well, you may not know this out in San Francisco, but Tyreek is king troll.
Oh, okay. He just wanted a little attention, and then he was laughed about it. LOL.
And I wrote a comment about it, like, dude, read the room. Stop. Not the time to be doing this. No, he said this happened Wednesday, and then he puts that out, and then a little bit later on, he goes, "Damn, that blew up more than I expected." And then he tweets out, "Got you all." And then the next day, he explains that all he was trying to say is he's seeing former players like Deion Sanders, Teddy Bridgewater, and now Michael Vick become coaches. And
he literally meant coach. See, I didn't know if he forgot the comma or purposely didn't put it there. Good for him. He didn't forget the comma.
No, he didn't forget the comment. Like he didn't know he could have just said, "Time for me to go be a coach."
Be a coach was what? Yes, that was important.
Yeah, but
that would have helped. Thanks, Tyreek.
He just loves to troll, and it's like, okay, let me ask you this: as somebody who covers another team,
sure,
because somebody threw that out there, and I'm like, yeah, good luck with that. Somebody threw out the idea of the Dolphins trading Tyreek Hill in the offseason to see what you can get for him. And my thought on this is he's coming off his worst season ever, other than one where he had injuries or his rookie year. He's got big money coming. He's 30 or 31 and getting injured, and you have to deal with the fact that he's kind of a volatile personality. Tell me exactly what you're going to get for him. I mean,
and with a questionable past, I think the past alone would disqualify him from certain markets. Like I don't think the Niners would touch him because the Bay Area. I mean, the headline would be. You already know. I think there's certain teams that would go there. And again, he's expensive. He's older. His game is based on speed. Here's another thing, though. Would the Dolphins even do it? What would Tua be without Tyreek? It's not like he's Josh Allen over here who can, or Patrick Mahomes. Doesn't he need these weapons? He's not that great.
You can reach him. He's at Grant Cohn on Twitter, social media. I'll give you your email address. The one who said it, not me. You are just made some enemies right there with.
Isn't that the double-edged sword with a quarterback like Tua? Like you pay him a lot of money, but he needs expensive weapons because he's not really elite.
Here's the thing. No, I don't think Tua is elite.
Yeah.
Tua is elite when everything around him is working
Right.
great. And he put up big numbers, and I mentioned the Las Vegas and the New England game without Tyreek doing a whole lot because everything was underneath. There was an awful lot of checking down. I mean, it's dink and dunk all over the place, but Tua was very accurate in those short passes, and he was very effective. But I think they need, if they're going to be effective, and Tyreek's numbers, and I'm dancing all over the place here, Tyreek's numbers against good opponents are not very good either, nor are Tua's. And again, I think Tua's a good, not great quarterback. And I think when the offense was operating at its peak last year, it's Tyreek Hill who made the difference, because even when he's not catching passes, he's creating so much space underneath because teams play him over the top. So.
You know what I'm looking at? I'm looking at two teams that need to rebuild but won't, and are kind of in denial about where they stand. They've locked themselves in to the core that they have, and they're going to probably run it back next year, and might not go so well. They may have a repeat. Both teams.
You know what? That's a great point, because I know the Dolphins are going to run it back. But
Same with the Niners. They're just going to say we had some injuries. Okay, go see what happens with this team that's older now.
Yeah, and the other issue that the 49ers have is that I didn't mention before. Part of the reason they got to the NFC Championship game and the Super Bowl in back-to-back years is the NFC, to be very polite, kind of sucked.
It did.
Now it's kind of creeping up a little bit, because Philly's back to being really, really good. Detroit's going to be a problem for years. Green Bay's going to be a problem for a while.
Yeah. Minnesota's an excellent organization. Washington has their stuff together all of a sudden. Yeah, absolutely. Agree.
Okay, well, let's close out with this. Your kind of final thoughts on how you see the game playing out.
Oh man, I haven't really taken it that seriously because their season's over. So I mean, I could see the 49ers playing great. Like all of a sudden the pressure's off and they put up 35 points and win. I could see them doing that. At the same time, I could see them completely checked out. Not playing Bosa, not playing Greenlaw, giving up 35 points and losing. I don't have a great feel for this one. I don't know who this team is. And now that the pressure's off, I just don't know what to make of them. I'm going to say they win this game. I think they're better than the Dolphins. I think they're more. I don't think the Dolphins really struggle with teams that have any talent, right? I mean, you tell me. They beat bad teams, and maybe the Niners are bad. That's the thing about them. Maybe they're bad. But I'm going to pick the Niners to win this game, and I don't know why. Okay. I don't feel confident about that.
Yeah, the Dolphins have I think it was 1-5 I saw, or actually I checked. I didn't see. I mean, I checked. It's 1-5 against teams that currently have a winning record. The only team they beat was the Rams.
Well, the Niners don't have a winning record, so I don't know. The best team the Niners have beaten all year is they beat Tampa when they didn't have either of their wide receivers, and they beat Seattle. That's it. What an awful year for this team. Yeah. Fun year to cover them, though.
You're not liking for content, are you?
No, not at all. Absolutely not. Well, it'd be fun if there was a coaching search to cover it this offseason. But again, like you said, the Niners are just going to stay in denial one more year and tell themselves that everything's going to be okay next year. We'll see how that goes. Interesting strategy.
You're not suggesting that Kyle Shanahan's job is in jeopardy, are you? Damn.
It's not. Okay. But, there's been these rumors. First, Mike Florio said it. Then I think it was Troy Aikman said it during a broadcast. Hey, Chicago should really trade for Kyle Shanahan. It almost feels like the Niners don't have the guts to fire Kyle Shanahan because everyone would call him stupid. And maybe even some players on the team would be upset. I think they're really hoping Chicago calls. I think they're hoping Chicago calls and makes them an offer they can't refuse, Godfather style. Now, when I was a kid, the famous trade was the Raiders traded Gruden to Tampa for 2 1s, 2 2s, and I think like $5 to $10 million. I don't think the Niners would get all that for Kyle Shanahan in 2024. But if they could get 1-1, 1-2, I wonder if they would do it. Maybe not. But Chicago, do it. No, it would be a mistake for Chicago too. I don't know. Kyle Shanahan, the same with Mike McDaniel. Have they been figured out? Forget the leadership, the lack of leadership. Forget that. Just the offenses. It's not working this year. Like, I'm curious to see if they've gotten figured out. Curious.
No.
Now, if they have Christian McCaffrey in their prime, I'm sure they're both going to be great. But
yeah, that's the thing.
Yeah.
How much? Because it's always, yeah. How much do you win the game schematically, and then how much do you win the game in terms
yeah,
of
how smart was Mike McDaniel, or was it just that Tyreek Hill was like having this generational run and now it's over? Same with McCaffrey.
Correct.
I mean, those guys were like 1 and 2 in the offensive player of the year voting. They were transcendent players. Now they're not.
Correct. And
Yeah.
I've said this all along, and you're going to see this tomorrow, and we can revisit. You can shoot me a text and tell me if I was right or I was wrong. But Tyreek Hill, to me, has not looked like the same explosive guy he was the past 2 years. He's still fast, but he was like different fast the past 2 years. And
This is what happens to wide receivers when they hit their 30s. I mean, Jerry Rice maintained his level of play, but like most wide receivers don't. I think and this is why the Chiefs traded Tyreek Hill when they did. And you could argue it was one of the best trades in franchise history for Kansas City because they haven't lost a Super Bowl since that happened. So I don't know.
And the flip side is I'm not sure if the Dolphins it's a win for the Dolphins, except the guy was team MVP his first 2 years.
I think it was a win for both teams, but now the Dolphins are in this weird spot where it's like he was the team and now he's not the same player. And where do you go from here? How do you replace what he was? I don't think you can. It's not Jalen Waddle. Good player, but not Tyreek Hill. Tyreek Hill was like playing at maybe a Hall of Fame level. I mean, he was one of the best wide receivers I've ever seen for a while.
Without question. No, he was the biggest threat in the NFL those 2 years.
Correct.
And then you mentioned Jalen Waddle, of course. He was part of that whole.
Yeah, the two of them on the field together just seemed like it was too much. But now.
Yeah, I was going to say, no, he was part of that whole deal was part of the trade where the Niners messed up insanely badly by giving the Dolphins 2 additional first-round picks to go from 12 to 3 and pick Trey Lance. And then the Dolphins, after that one trade, that they made that trade, and I'm not like a fan person, and I was like, hell yeah, that's a great trade. And they got, 2 additionals to go to 12 in a really good draft at the top, and then they moved from 12 to 6, gave up one of those 2 extra ones to go pick Jalen Waddle at 6 instead of Penei Sewell. And
I know people that don't follow the Niners look at Kyle Shanahan and think he's great. Well, why would anyone complain about him? He passed on Patrick Mahomes because he took Solomon Thomas, and then he traded 3 first-round picks and a third for Trey Lance, and he's on the verge of his 4th losing season in 8 years. He's done some really good things, but whoa, there's some reasons he hasn't won a Super Bowl, and they're very much Kyle reasons.
But were those Kyle moves or were those John Lynch moves?
Good question. The way it's perceived out here, because they hired Kyle before they hired Lynch. Okay. The way it was looked at is like Kyle didn't want to be hired by a general manager. He wanted to sort of have control. Okay. So the way I look at John Lynch is he's a weak general manager at best and a figurehead, maybe realistically. And I think Kyle Shanahan runs the organization. And if he doesn't feel like making a decision, he could delegate it. But essentially, why are they so good at drafting late and not so good at drafting early? Because Kyle isn't drafting late. They drafted Ricky Pearsall this year in round 1 after like the night of. Someone asked, hey, Kyle, like, what do you see in Ricky? Who does he remind you of? He reminds me of myself, he said. Kyle played wide receiver at Texas. I think he caught 10 passes. Reminds me of myself, he said. That's not a good thing. It's not good.
Not a good reason to draft.
It's not good.
That's funny. At least you didn't say Mike McDaniel, who was wide receiver at Yale, right? No, it's interesting because I think we got some of that going on with the Dolphins as well. And all they talk about is every decision is made in collaboration and all that. And then you have the report, which Mike McDaniel certainly didn't deny, that he stepped in there when the Dolphins were on the verge of trading Calais Campbell to the 49ers for a 4th-round pick. And McDaniel said, nah, we're keeping him because I think we can make a run.
I think what you're seeing a lot is like these coaches from this tree getting a lot of power. It's not just that they're offensive play callers. They're also the head coach. They're also the quasi general manager, which makes them kind of like the king of the organization. And how many coaches have succeeded doing that? I mean, there's a strong general manager in Kansas City. Plus, he has an offensive coordinator. He calls the plays, Andy Reid, but there's a lot of other people there who actually have jobs and do them. And I think with the Niners and the Dolphins, it's very much the Kyle Shanahan and Mike McDaniel show. And they're not even necessarily good at like their primary job anymore. Again, their offenses are struggling, and we're expecting them to be good personnel men. And on top of that, probably not. But hey, that Tyreek Hill trade was nice. That Christian McCaffrey trade was nice. What's the next thing they got up their sleeve? Because they need something else.
Who are the Dolphins?
Yeah, the Dolphins going to need another big blockbuster trade. The Niners will too, because I don't think Christian McCaffrey's coming back to save him. He'll be 29, coming off a lost season. Good luck.
Yeah, no, and he's got the injuries piling up.
Yeah,
it's the same with Tyreek. I don't know that I see a massive deal, because again, to me, once they doled out all those contracts and they committed to Tua, Tyreek, Jalen Waddle, and Mike McDaniel for.
And again, there's a little bit of delusion with both of these teams that they can that they're okay. That just because they're 6-8 doesn't mean things are sinking, that the ship is sinking. Just don't overreact. Bring it back next year. It'll be okay. Okay, we'll see about that.
Well, and the Dolphins will probably, as you mentioned, the 49ers like pointing to injuries. The Dolphins will probably go, well, we were 1-3 when Tua was on IR.
And that was the difference in the season. What are they with Tua?
5-5. And it's on them for not getting a better quarterback than, with all due respect, Skylar Thompson or Mike White in the offseason. But
yeah, and that's the thing with the Dolphins and the Niners. Like, are they bad teams? No, maybe not necessarily. Are they good teams? No, not necessarily either. I mean, they're in this like purgatory of mediocrity that you often hit when you pay too much money to a quarterback who isn't worth it. And your roster starts bleeding. And you can't really do anything about it. All you can do is say, it's okay. We're not that bad. We'll be better next year. Oh, let's see.
No, and with the Dolphins, it's massive cap numbers for those three guys. Or Tyreek and Waddle. And again, the biggest problem for this team is it's not physical, tough enough. Well, you got three finesse skill guys, so that's not.
Yeah, and then you may not know it, but like for the Niners, they gave 3 huge contract extensions this offseason. Brandon Ayuk, Christian McCaffrey, Trent Williams. They're all hurt. They're all hurt, like seriously. So I don't know how bright the future is out here, but the Niners say it's going to be okay. It's going to be okay. And they increased season ticket prices. Everything's fine. Everything's fine, Alan.
You know what we could do, actually, and we would have no issues with that. I could write stories for your side. You could write stories for my side, and we just change the name of the player. Because it's just the stories.
Just cross out Miami Dolphins, put in San Francisco 49ers. It would be the same thing. It would be factual.
There you go.
Tua is like they're left-handed, right-handed. Tua and Purdy, same player.
Yep. The only difference is one was picked 5th overall, and the other one was a 7th round pick.
It's true.
Who you got, by the way, after the Dolphins selected Skylar Thompson instead.
That was
not good there.
So I guess the Niners hooked up the Dolphins with the Trey Lance trade, and the Dolphins hooked up the Niners with the Brock by not taking Brock Purdy.
See, there you go.
There you go.
Yeah, but again, this is, if ever there was a definition of playing or an example of playing the results, that would be it. Because I don't know that anybody expected Brock Purdy to become, even though I don't think he's a great quarterback, but at least a solid NFL.
When they drafted him, the night of, Kyle Shanahan's walking out of the interview room, and real quick, like Matt Mayoko, who covers the team for NBC, says, "Who's this guy remind you of?" Throwaway pick at the end of the draft. Kyle over his shoulder goes, Nick Mullins. Nick Mullins. He didn't know. He thought he was taking Nick Mullins 2.0. If you don't even know who Nick Mullins is, he was the backup here for a while. I think he's over in Minnesota now. Not a great quarterback, just a functional backup.
Correct.
That's who Purdy was supposed to be. Then it turns out that he's like, oh, he can move. He's got this.
No, and of
but
course,
really, how good was Purdy? It turns out that he was playing with Christian McCaffrey and a bunch of other All-Pros. I'm thinking Tua probably would have looked really good on that team.
Oh, he would, absolutely.
Without
question. And of course, we got the first taste of Brock Purdy in that 2022 game. And it was like, yeah, he's operating. He had one. I mean, I don't know, we bring it up like one solitary play. He made one play in that game. I don't know if you recall that. I was like, damn, that's impressive, especially for
early on against the blitz, right?
Jalen Phillips like tattooed him in the face of the guy coming right at him. He threw like a dart. I was like,
to Kittle over the middle, I believe. Yes.
Yeah, I don't remember who.
That was legit.
I was like, damn, that was impressive.
Yeah. Yeah, that's the thing with Purdy. Like, he burst on the scene and it was clear he needed no development. He played a lot in college. He fit the system. He learned the system. He was ready to go. And that was great because the Niners were trying to make it work with Trey Lance, who needed a lot of development, and they didn't want to do it because they had this established team. And so, like, Brock Purdy allowed them to sort of keep the Jimmy Garoppolo formula with a guy who's on a rookie deal. Now they could, like, add to the team and spend elsewhere, and it worked for a while. But now it's time to pay Brock, and whoo, he wants a lot of money. What are they going to do?
We could do a whole show on the stupidity of like, you're the next team, so you have to go hire the next one, and you have to go hire the next. I mean, Jesus.
Yeah. Because some team made a mistake, you need to be the next team that makes a mistake. It's the league.
Yeah, I'm sorry, but Josh Allen, Patrick Mahomes, Lamar Jackson, and Joe Burrow should be the 4 highest paid quarterbacks. Period.
Yeah, and Brock Purdy should not make more money than Patrick Mahomes ever, no matter what.
I agree.
Because the Niners still think they have these Super Bowl aspirations. The only reason they don't have rings right now is because the Chiefs exist. So how are you going to beat them with a quarterback who's more expensive than Mahomes and not as good as Mahomes? It's not going to happen.
Correct. And yet they were so close last year.
With Purdy making $900K. Yeah, that's how close they were. Correct. With he making $60 million, I don't think they're going to get that close. But I could be wrong.
No, I agree. I'm not going to be wrong. We've been wrong before. We'll be wrong again, and we're proud that we'll be wrong again. You know why? Because that means we're not afraid to express our.
Who are you picking this weekend?
I'm about to go write my game preview with final score prediction.
Okay. I know, right? It's hard to pick a game. It's like picking a preseason game. I don't know.
No, I don't think the Dolphins have checked out in the least.
Okay.
Unlike the 49ers. And
that gives the Dolphins a leg up right there.
Except if the 49ers play all their defensive players, it's a good defense. The Dolphins are going to have problems offensively, but I think the defense, which played really well against Houston last week, I think will handle the 49ers offense. So I'm leaning towards the Dolphins.
The Niners have no running back. I mean, their top 3 guys are hurt. They don't do so well when Purdy has to be the engine of the offense. There's a lot of reasons to pick the Dolphins in this game.
Maybe the 49ers should borrow a couple of their former running backs now with the Dolphins, because Raheem Mostert's been kind of relegated to a backup role and Jeff Wilson is inactive half the time.
There's also a little like conspiracy theory out here in the Bay that Kyle Shanahan may not be calling his best games because he was trying to maybe get a discount with Brock Purdy. I don't know, something to think about. They don't use screens as much in the past. They don't use play action as much in the past. I mean, there's like easy plays for quarterbacks and there's hard plays for quarterbacks. And this year it's been 7-step drop. What you got, Brock? So I don't really know what that's about. Something to watch for.
That's very interesting. And the Dolphins are the other way. I mean, they call, like, you will see a ton of tight end screens, quick hitters, shovel passes, and all that.
Because he needs it, and so does Brock.
Wow, he went. And by the way, Grant Cohn took another shot at Tua there.
Sorry, it just seems like the Niners are like, hey man, if we're going to pay you, or Kyle's like, if we're going to pay you $60 million a year, I'm taking the training wheels off, and we're going to see what you can really do. Like, yikes, it's not so good.
I agree, and I wouldn't do it. So, but we'll find out. Hey, maybe it's going to be a 47-45 shootout, and Purdy and Tua combined for 1,000 passing yards. Who knows?
Could be.
Yeah, wouldn't expect it. It'd be fun to watch, actually. So.
Sure.
All righty, gang. That's going to do it for this episode. Thanks, as always, to my good buddy here, Grant Cohn. Check out his work at 49ersonsi.com. His podcast, The Cohn Zone. Please like, subscribe, share all that good stuff, and we'll be back after the game on Sunday with our live post-game show. Until then, have a great rest of your Saturday, early Sunday, and enjoy the game.